Right. Welcome to Upper Pylon 2. Our mission is to provide you with an in-depth review of every episode of DS9 in the order they were broadcast. Tonight's episode is A Time to Stand. And this is Blair from Ontario, Canada.
And this is Matt in Buffalo.
And this is Matt from Arizona, and you are cleared for docking. Well, guys, we've not only made it to the Dominion War, but we've made it to Season 6. I can hardly believe we only have about 2 seasons left. And it's kind of bittersweet for me because I know back in my mind that this is my last season with Jadzia. So, very sad day for me, but we need not dwell on such sad things when we have such a cool episode to kick us off with. A Time to Stand. Synopsis. Just, it's Chris. So the Chorus of War is your synopsis by Edwin Starr. This is the first episode of Season 6 and 119th overall. It first aired not on May 12th, 1997. It first aired on September 29th, 1997. It was written by Ira Stephen Bear and Heinz Baumler, directed by Alan Croker. Guest stars this week include Andrew Robinson as Garrick, Jeffrey Combs as Wayoon, Mark Alaimo as Ducat, J.G. Hertzler as Martok, Aaron Eisenberg as Nog, Casey Biggs as Damar, and we get our big introduction in one scene this week to Barry Jenner as Admiral Ross, who is going to become a secondary player moving forward. So, since Chris is not here to read his notes this week, Blair has valiantly stepped up to the task. So, Blair, whenever you're ready, take us into A Time to Stand.
All right, so we begin with, of course, our teaser. A battered Federation and Klingon fleet move through space. 3 months have passed since the Dominion began their occupation of DS9. The Defiant has been on the run from the Jem'Hadar for 78 hours. Everyone on board is tense and exhausted. Nog gets anxious that the news of the 7th Fleet's counter-assault has not arrived, while Miles is sick and tired of running from the Dominion. In the medical supply room, Bashir is treating Garrick for a small head wound. Bashir estimates the chances of their survival at 32.7%, and Garrick is not impressed with Bashir's calculations, notwithstanding Bashir's recently revealed genetic enhancements. The Defiant and the Rotaran rendezvous, and Worf and Dax are reunited in the Defiant's mess hall. After a joyous hello, Worf reveals that he is as bad as Matt says he is, and there is no denying his annoying, I don't even know what
proclivities.
Proclivities.
You know what it is Worf is a big old bridezilla.
It's true enough. And again, this is the first time I'm reading these notes as we go, so I'm kind of reading quickly here, or scanning ahead as I'm reading, and kind of having a little chuckle here. As Worf and Jadzia leave, Captain Sisko jokes about Klingon sex. Bashir enters and says they've been ordered to Starbase 375, and he has word of the 7th Fleet's engagement in the Tyra system, and it went very poorly. As we break to opening credits.
So it's really awesome how they open this season, right? As the fist-pumping moment that we all talked about in the Yuppies, and at the end of the last episode, the cliffhanger of joining this fleet, coming back immediately to it being much, much smaller, and being...
A couple of vessels are broken down, yeah. They're having to be towed, and,
It is a nice, really welcome shock, right? Coming back to this season. I remember that the first time seeing it and kind of going, oh, wow, I didn't expect them to be losing.
Well, because that's the thing, right, is that it's Star Trek, we're so used to the, even like when Wolf 359 happens, we're so used to the good guys winning and Starfleet just regrouping and getting back on their feet. Like, we're not used to seeing them. This just puts into perspective right away how badly this war is going for them.
It does, and it's kind of interesting, too, because you want to think that, wow, we have the collective resources of how many thousands of planets are in the Federation, and they are losing. I think that's a little bit of that continued commentary on, the commentary on Starfleet that we've seen in Deep Space Nine, of that they just were never ready. Maybe there was something right, or something to be said for those jerk-offs on the Ryza episode.
Well, not just that. I mean, I go back to Q on that when he introduces them to the Borg. Is that they really are not ready to face a lot of the dangers of the universe. Um, but yeah, it's quite shocking here.
And it's good to see they're actually getting their butt kicked by someone other than the Borg, because up to this point, the Borg were the really bad enemy that the Federation could not, essentially beat.
Well,
This
and then
is
also
this,
keep in mind that this is that season 6 of DS9 runs concurrently with season 4 of Voyager when Seven's introduced. So they're going to go knee deep into the Borg on. They're already doing the Borg on that other show.
yeah, absolutely. But they are being beat by normal, I guess you could say normal species within the Alpha Quadrant that they would normally not be beaten by, type thing, which is kind of nice to see.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've alluded in the past that Starfleet's fought wars before, but you get the sense that it's never been on this magnitude. I mean, they've had wars with the Cardassians, of course, way back when they had the war with the Romulans, but that's when they had a smaller fleet. Um,
Yeah, you always get the sense that it's like border skirmishes.
yeah,
Oh, they never have to commit a huge amount of the fleet to it. It's just like, well, we're not going to wage a war, a conquest.
I mean,
Let's just keep them at bay, kind of
I mean,
thing.
this is like, the way it comes off to me, it's like 1939, 1940s Europe, where like everyone was just not prepared for what Germany was going to do, you know?
Mm-hmm. And the, Star Trek, Starship geek here, this is apparently like the last time we will ever see a big group shot of actual practical models again. This is it. It's the transition to the new CGI era right after this opening fleet shot.
Which,
Those are all practical models, except for the Defiant.
as good as the models look, I mean, like when we think of the magnitude of the battles coming up, there's no way they could do it with models. It's too much effort.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is where you see the neatness of the kit bashing. Like you get the awful Jaeger class, but the kit bashed Excelsior class ships here and then the Centaur later, that is kind of where this stuff really works well, because this is them literally taking model toys that you buy at the store and bashing them together and putting them on screen. It's rather neat, in my opinion.
I think it's creative. I mean, apparently, like, they have a budget, but I mean, this is not like Discovery days. Back during the Berman era, the budget was tight, so they had to work with what they had, and it all looks. I think I mean, obviously it's late '90s CGI, but I still think it looks pretty good.
It does. It really does. And it's that little tug ship. I remember being fascinated by that, seeing that for the first time as a kid. That's a kit bash of like a Romulan Warbird's engines and just other crap. It's just captivating seeing this physical little thing.
But I also, we haven't mentioned this, but I also like where we find the crew. They're all tired, they're all broken down, and I think nothing expresses like a change of character and how much they've grown more than Bashir. Bashir's like ultra serious, at least in this first part. And I mean, I know we say it all the time, but like I always think of this scene for some reason when I compare and contrast like early season 1 Bashir to what he later becomes. Like here he has his shirt's torn, his sleeves are rolled up, he's all forceful about the war. It's just like I like what it's doing to these characters.
Yeah, it's instantly tone setting for what we're going to see for at least the next 6 episodes or whatever this opening arc is. It's very akin to, and I got to imagine Roger D. Moore had a hand in this too, because we see him do the same kind of a thing in the first episode of Battlestar after it comes back in season 1, the episode's 33, and it just jumps right into you haven't seen anything beforehand, but they've been going through hell for the past days and days, and it just comes in and you just know how ragged everybody is being run.
And I think it's kind of neat that we're seeing that now with like the 3rd episode of Discovery. When Burnham first gets to the Discovery, you see the effect that the wars had on Starfleet. Like I think I'm not saying that they're looking directly at this, but I like seeing these kind of themes continued in this current war story that we're doing. Not that that's a total non sequitur, but.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, I mean, it's mentioned in the notes there, the Worf and Dax part. I mean, this by itself isn't that bad, but man, because I just have so much of that pent up negativity about this. It's annoying when he shows up and he's Bridezilla.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll say this: like, as bad as he is, he's going to get even more insufferable next season when the way he treats Ezri. I mean, I'm not fond of Ezri, but like, wow, she got beaten with such negativity upon arrival for no reason.
Frankly, I'm looking forward to that because there, in my mind, not having seen this in a long time, there is reason to it. That's got to be weird if you put yourself in a worse position.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to interpreting that, and seeing what merit there was to that performance and what we got from it.
Right. It's going to be interesting going forward, but let's get past the opening credits. Things are very, very bad. But I think we're about to check in with the people who are currently winning.
That we are. So when we return, we find ourselves on Terek Nor, and Dukat narrates a log entry, and he's quite pleased with how the war is going. And this brings us to our first clip.
Permanent documentation file, Dukat, SG. Each day brings reports of new victories. The war continues to go well. The enemy is retreating on almost all fronts. It's only a matter of time before the Federation collapses and Earth becomes another conquered planet under Dominion rule. All in all, it's a good time for Cardassia and the Dominion.
My dear Major Kira, you have no idea how it pleases me to hear you say that. Dukat, the Major has just given me the most wonderful news. The Jorans are returning to the station.
I'm well aware of it.
Then I'm sure you share my delight in knowing that life here is returning to normal. The shops are reopening. The promenade is abuzz with activity once again. The habitat ring echoes with the laughter of happy children.
I've doubled security patrols throughout the station.
Are such precautions really necessary?
I've found that one can't be too careful when dealing with the Bajorans.
What's the matter, Dukat? Afraid we'll take the station away from you again?
You're welcome to try.
Come now, come now. There's no need for this petty bickering. We're all friends here.
Are we?
Of course we are. And if you have any suggestions, Major, feel free to bring them to me at any time.
Fine. We'd like the station's Bajoran security force reinstated.
I suppose you want us to give them back their weapons as well.
That's right.
The station no longer requires a Bajoran security force. Our troops can handle any problems that might arise.
The Federation and Bajor always shared equal responsibility for station security. I thought you said that we would have the same arrangement with the Dominion. After all, we are all friends here, aren't we?
Perhaps you should reconsider your decision.
The order stands. You may trust the Bajorans, but I don't. And until they earn my trust, I prefer to keep them unarmed. And if you were in my position, Major, you would do exactly the same thing.
Perhaps it would be best to let the matter rest for a while.
So, in an episode of a lot of good, and there's a lot of good stuff in this episode, for me, the best thing is Weyoun in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is always, well, up to this point, he's either a little duplicitous or goofy or kind of comedy relief. This episode, you can completely see how he could be the crazy sociopath leader. He is charming, but then when he turns that switch, it's a side of him I don't know if we've really truly seen before, of like, oh, he is actually dangerous, and I don't think we've seen that before this point. And this episode to me is an eye-opening experience for him. Trying to come into this with new eyes. This is like the episode where it's like, oh, wow, there is something there. He isn't just the second fiddle to Dukat by any means.
And you really sees, how the Vorta can be employed in this. This is his job. He comes in, he turns relatively an occupying force, whether you like it or not, into the whole party line for the Dominion. He's very good at what he does, and as you said, can be very, very dangerous. It's Dukat thinks he's running the show. Not so much, as we're going to find out a little later on.
Dukat thinks he's running the show, but Wayne is pulling his strings. I mean, and speaking of like the character development here, I just like the changes that we're seeing. Like, I love how, you know, now that Dukat has the station and has what he wants and is in charge, that whole benevolent dictator thing of I just wanted the Bajorans to love me, that's all gone now. I mean, you notice that, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see a little bit where it's, I don't know if it's a clip coming up, but that scene with Kira, there's no kind of beating around it anymore.
And what I like about Kira is that, again, like Bashir, I think this shows how far she's come, because, you know, she's what I like about what her character goes through in this arc, and she starts it in this episode, is that she realizes that in order to make this resistance, she's going to have to fight a different kind of battle than what she did when she was just a terrorist. And that requires a lot more calm and poise on her part. And I like how, you know, even in that scene when people are trying to egg her on, she's not getting angry. She's not lashing out. You can see that she's, you know, she's watched Cisco for years, and she's kind of like trying to walk that line, but still serve her own interests. And so, like, it's such a stark contrast to where we started with her.
And she's eyes open enough at this point that, back to the Wei Yun point, I think she is recognizing the danger of letting herself kind of get worked by him. Like, later on, we see it in her and Odo are discussing that who's using who in this? Are they using us, or are we using him? So it's, yeah, she is very savvy now at this point.
And that's just something I like seeing with her.
Yeah, season 1, she would have pulled a phaser on somebody and probably shot him by now, right? But
yep.
It's very refreshing to see her now as the most stable element on the station for our heroes, at least, right?
Yeah, definitely something that would, like you said, we would never have seen that coming 6 years ago. So just to continue on, Kira leaves, and Wei Yun demands that Damar leave as well. He then turns to Dukat and demands that he be included in all decisions on station policy moving forward. Further, Wei Yun is impatient with Dukat's slow progress on clearing the minefield that is blocking the wormhole, thus preventing Dominion reinforcements from getting through the Gamma Quadrant. Dukat complains that destroying these self-replicating mines is difficult because when they attempt to destroy one, its neighbor replicates another, but assures Wei Yun that he will get it done.
But good stuff there again, just Wei Yun playing him. Dismisses people before he dresses him down to save Dukat his little bit of, you know, not that Dukat's ever going to lose his dignity and self-worth and all that, but
no, and then like quote unquote asks to be part of station decisions, where it's like, this isn't a request. You will make me part of station decisions.
Yeah, but he's letting him think he's in charge and all that. And it also just a great little bit, we didn't talk about it, but it's in the clip there, of Dukat talking about, you know, this is a great day for Cardassia and the Dominion. And it's just, that's letting you know that this is just Dukat right there, right?
He did that at the end of last season when he was in the invasion fleet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good stuff. So we move into Quarks, and business is looking up again. Cardassians ring the gaming tables, and though Quark has to contend with several tables of Jem'Hadar who do not eat,
which are
drink,
great, by the way. I love it.
or relax, but just sit looking just miserable.
I didn't think they even sat, but yet they're sitting in the bar.
But well, you know, they
well,
got.
I mean, we look at their ship. Obviously, they don't sit, but they are here.
So are these their dirtbag alpha Jem'Hadar already sitting, loafing about?
Yeah, we don't know that. Yeah, that's a good point. Probably not at this point, but soon.
Yeah.
And then Quark goes on to remind Kira that all three of them have had vivid memories of horrible conditions for the Bajorans on the station during the last occupation, which are not present this time. Quark admits that he wants the Federation back as much as they do, but he encourages them that things could be a lot worse. Odo reluctantly agrees, and Kira proves this to be a facade, bringing up the lack of Bajoran security on board. And I just want to point out, I'm surprised that Chris didn't select this as a clip. I thought it was really good because at first your first instinct is, oh, here's Quark not caring about what's going on. He's making money. That's all he really cares about. But we've seen what the occupation was like. We've seen how Quark lived through the occupation as well.
And what he says is not wrong. It is on the surface. It's better.
Absolutely. We know ultimately the Federation is better, but as he says, as far as occupations go, it could be a lot worse. And I thought that, again, this is Quark, not a lot of scenes, but this is a fantastic scene. And I wish we'd pulled the clip for that one, but it was really good.
That's the ruse of the Dominion, right? It's that they let you think you have this freedom, but as soon as you step out of line, they'll kill you, and it turns out you have no freedom. So they are dependent on a lot of people being the Quarks of the worlds they take over. Just, hey, could be worse. I'm allowed to still run my bar. I'm not going to raise any trouble. And then that's how you can control a huge empire without, having a Jem'Hadar at every corner.
I mean, literally, Dominion occupation is that meme that goes along with online where like it's the dog sitting in the middle of the fire where they say this is fine.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, it's like, well, I don't know, because we never really see what it's truly like in the Dominion, right? We always see the worlds that rose up against them or the worlds that are at the edge, the ones that are about to be taken over in that. The Quark has traded or tried open trade with somebody, and they have a certain degree of freedom. They just have to kick it upstairs to the, the mob that is the Dominion. So it would be interesting to see, and I don't know if it's in some expanded universe thing. What is it actually like on a given world that's paying all their dues to the Dominion?
That's a great point.
I mean, the way I think about it, again, there's a lot of parallels here. They like, especially in this era of Star Trek, they like referencing World War II. I just take it as like it's like Nazi occupied France. That's what I take life under the Dominion to be like.
Yeah, I would imagine that's a direct parallel or close to it. So it's like you have some illusion of autonomy, though. Like I'm sure there's puppet governments on all these places.
Oh yeah, but what I'm saying is like in Nazi Germany, they can stop you. They can do whatever they want to you at any time.
Right. As long if that puppet government gets out of place, they'll just come in and wipe it out and just go, no, we're restarting. This isn't what you should be doing. So it's all a big illusion, I would imagine. I mean, I could be wrong. Like I said, we never see it, but they draw upon history a lot. And I'm sure, like you said, that's the kind of thing they're trying to draw a conclusion with here.
So we move forward and we find the Defiant arrives at Starbase 375, and we meet Admiral William Ross, who surprises Sisko by relieving him of command of the Defiant and tells Sisko that he'll be informed of his new assignment later. While waiting, Sisko contacts his father, Joseph, in New Orleans. Benjamin promises his father that he'll get Jake back soon. And Joseph asks if things are as bad as the news services says they are. And Sisko says they're worse.
I really like that little scene. I mean, there's not a ton here, but man, you really do need these little bits of things. And it's like, this is the type of scene you just wouldn't get if they had this anything other than a big serialized arc, right? Because this doesn't really do too much, but it just adds some depth, adds some realism, gives you a glimpse of what civilians are kind of being told about this war and how they're reacting to it.
Well, yeah, I think that it's important that we need to establish how the war is affecting the entire Federation. I mean, like, we're seeing it through mainly the perspectives of the DS9 crew because they're our main characters. But like stuff like this helps establish like how it's affecting Earth, how it's affecting Starfleet. It's good stuff.
And it's damn good that we are touching base with a character that, we kind of all liked, I think, to a degree in previous episodes. So it's like, it's nice that they have now this collective body that they can go back and touch upon.
And he's really good here. I like him. Like for the 3 minutes he's here in this episode.
Absolutely. I think had we never seen Cisco's father before, I don't think this scene would have had as much impact. And I also like to see, and we've seen it before, where Cisco is treated like a son, and you can see Cisco kind of being put in his place
Yes.
a little bit. And I
Yes.
love that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you never see Ben Sisko kind of talk and react the way that he did, being kind of scolded by his dad. And I really like that because that's not Captain Sisko, that's his son, kind of sheepishly having to talk to his dad about losing his grandson.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the call where you have to call your dad to say you crunched his car, and you're gonna get in so much crap, and you don't want to make the phone call, but you're just gonna do it and take your lumps, and I just thought it was fantastic.
it's great. The one thing that I do feel, I mean, I forgive it because like I want this crew to like still go on adventures together, but like as soon as that next scene after Cisco's relieved from the Defiant, he's having that scene with Dax, who like I really like that conversation, but she asks if they're staying together and he says you can count on it. I think if it's as bad as it is, like Dax gets promoted and sent off to another ship. You know what I mean? Like that's how it would really go. But like I said, I forgive it because I don't want to have them split up.
But that's what we do see though. Eventually, remember, Cisco becomes the adjutant, and Dax does become, the commanding officer of the Defiant. She may not have been promoted rank wise, but she captained the Defiant.
Right.
So we do see that later on.
But what I mean is like this person would be sent to this place and this person would be sent to that place. And
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
the thing where Matt's saying is presumably they have like a reserve fleet mothballed where all those damn crap hole Reliant ships are all dusted off and crewed with like 40 people. That's where it's
you're taking your senior officers to captain those ships because you've lost a whole bunch. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
A lieutenant is the captain of that ship, and it's just all right. Get out there.
I mean, and you figure like we never see the war affect them, but you would think that also too this would affect the Next Generation crew. Like you would think that some of them would get promoted. They would put Data in charge of a ship.
Yeah,
they give Riker his own ship.
Riker, quit being all just fat and happy, and I mean fat, on the Enterprise E, and let's get you your own ship.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. Well, let's move on then. Meanwhile, on Terok Nor, Jake wants an interview with Weyoun, but learns that Weyoun has been censoring his Federation News Service articles, which brings us to our second clip.
Excuse me, Mr. Weyoun. Oh, please, I prefer just Weyoun. That's the kind of detail people like to know. Would this be a good time? For what? For the interview we talked about, for the Federation News Service. I'm afraid that will be quite impossible. Why? Because I've read your previous articles, and they left me with one inescapable conclusion. You are biased against the Dominion. Well, what gave you that idea? You keep referring to us as the station's, quote, occupying force, unquote. What's wrong with that? It has a negative connotation. All your articles are filled with pejorative terminology, which is why I've been forced to withhold the transmission. Are you telling me that no one from the Federation read my reports? If I don't send them, they don't read them. What about freedom of the press? Please tell me you're not that naive. The only reason I stayed here was to report on the occupation. You see, there you go again. This is not an occupation. This is a Cardassian station, Jake. And I'm sure you're aware there are no Dominion troops on Bajor. Why should there be? We have a treaty with them. They're our friends. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. If you want me to send your articles to the Federation, you're going to have to provide a more balanced perspective. I won't write Dominion propaganda. I would never dream of asking you to. All I want is for you to keep an open mind. All right, my mind is open. Now can we do the interview? All in good time. You keep writing, I'll keep reading. Let's leave it at that for now. Good day, Jake.
Man, that last laugh, that dismissive laugh of Weyoun at the end, ha ha ha. It's just so good. And he's absolutely right.
I mean, it's just shut up, kid. Get out of my face.
Yeah, you couldn't possibly be this naive. Yeah, no, well, yeah, he is.
I know, but I like that line because, again, it shows you what life in the Dominion's like. There is no freedom of the press. There's like this illusion that there is a press, but I mean, essentially what he's advocating for, and he denies it, but you know he's full of crap. He wants a state news service to come out of this.
Right, and it's like, Jake, he should know better. He should write it down the line, just state it as it is, and then if he can get it out, you know the Federation News Service would put a disclaimer at the top saying these reports are all being checked by the Dominion. Take it with a grain of salt kind of stuff. So, man,
Or you would
it's good
think
that way.
Or you would think that like he would, you know, be somewhat clever in the sense that like he could write, because they used to do this too in the war, I believe, in World War II. Like they, out of France or whatever, they would transmit these new news reports and stuff, but it would have like coded stuff in them. So like you would think that he would find a way to like embed whatever he wants to go out.
He's not that clever. In this instance, he just isn't.
Yeah, and the other thing is like it's kind of annoying, but at the end of the day, I have to realize that, you know, he's probably 17 or 18 at this point, so like young, impatient, kind of naive. It's better than the you know, proper and precocious Star Trek kids that we normally get.
Yeah. All that being said, man, I would actually really like to have seen this. We never see the scene of that interview with Wei-Un. I would like to see him do his full disgusting politician, you know, act.
He kind of was doing it though in talking to Jake. I mean, like, you know, this is not an occupation. This is a Cardassian station. We're here to, like, we're Bajor's friends. Like, I know what you're saying, but like we get a taste of that a little bit.
Oh yeah, it would be that, just, you know, even more just disgustingly smiling to the camera kind of a thing.
Okay, so let's move on back to Starbase 375. Ross reveals Cisco and the Defiant's new assignment. They are to destroy the Dominion's main Ketracel White storage depot in the Alpha Quadrant, located deep in Dominion territory. Instead of the Defiant, they are to use the Jem'Hadar attack ship that Cisco captured a year ago. Great callback again. It's nice to see they did that.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks later, and again, it's great that they're trying to show time, that this isn't just, hey, you know, an hour later they're doing this stuff. I really like how they're really capturing the time of this war. You know, even in the opening scene, we're 3 months later. So I think that's really good that this war isn't just going to be over in 1 month type thing. So I really like that. So 2 weeks later, on board preparing for departure, the crew starts to complain about the design flaws of the Jem'Hadar ship. No chairs, no food replicators, no view screen on the bridge, and no infirmary. Garrick joins the crew at Cisco's invitation, as his knowledge of Cardassian space and Cardassian contacts may be useful.
It's been known to happen.
They are cleared. It does, yes. He's a very wise tailor. So they are cleared to leave. Back on Terok Nor, Dukat is sitting in Captain Cisco's office, and he wants to spend more time with Kira in what will be our third clip.
And probably like Dukat is most despicable and slimy.
And Chris labeled this one dirty, disgusting predator.
So, yeah, it's pretty fair.
Pretty fair. Absolutely.
Mommy,
You wanted to see me?
I always want to see you, Major. And therein lies the problem. It's been 3 months since my return to this station, and you and I have barely spent any time with one another. Oh, I know you could point out the various meetings we've attended together, but they never seem to offer us the opportunity to venture beyond station business.
It's all just so skeevy.
It's disgusting.
I haven't dismissed you yet.
What do you want from me, Dukat?
Come now, Major. Have the last 3 months been that bad?
Is that what you want? Is that why I'm here? to flatter you, to tell you what a good job you've done and how happy we all are to have you back.
Sarcasm doesn't become you, Major. It's your directness that I've always found most appealing.
Ducat, I got better things to do than to stand around and help you play out one of your little fantasies.
You feel I've betrayed you?
Not just me. Everyone. Even your own people.
Cardassia was on the edge of an abyss, Major. The war with the Klingons left us a third-rate power. My people had lost their way. I've made them strong again.
At what price? You sold Cardassia to the Dominion.
Yes. A high price, to be sure. But look what we're getting in return. The Alpha Quadrant itself.
We'll see about that.
Yes, we will. Oh. I could make things very pleasant for you here, Kira.
You could start by doing something about your brand.
I'm a patient man. I can wait.
Wait for what? What do you think is going to happen here, Ducat? That you're going to wear me down with your charming personality? That I'm going to be swept off my feet by that insincere smile? Are you really so deluded that you actually believe that we're going to have some kind of intimate relationship?
Oh, we already do. Good day, Major. I have work to do.
Well, a little creepy there. A little,
I mean, I think this is my favorite scene in the whole episode, to be honest with you, just because it's so creepy and it's so uncomfortable. And again, I think this highlights what a character change Kira's gone through, because you see her really just pushed to her edge right here. She would love to kill him in this moment. And I think earlier, more unrestrained, she would have. Like, because she's just so angry, but like it's boiling beneath the surface with her.
and I think this certainly takes any ambiguity away from. Remember back in civil defense, we were wondering, was he really flirting with her? I think that that's perfectly clear where he stands with her right now after this conversation.
Absolutely. And it's just so, I said it during the clip, it's just so skeevy, because not only is he like a disgusting guy, it's to the point where he can't even understand how somebody isn't throwing themselves at him. That's the whole thing. He's like, I've done everything. Why aren't you just all over me right now? And he just doesn't understand it. Yeah. It's insane. And it's really interesting as a quality for a villain, especially in Star Trek. Because if you think about the tendencies he's showing, this is tremendously dark kind of stuff and very realistic. It's not the Borg here where you have to do some big science fiction analogy. This is like very human kind of predator stuff, like Chris kind of said as the title for the clip.
And yet I feel like, because we're a lot more socially conscious now than we were back then when we were making these episodes. I like the fact that even though he's pretty much, I'm just going to go ahead and say he's pretty much, almost to the point of sexually molesting Kira. But what I like about it is that she at no point becomes submissive or subservient. She keeps her agency, which is something that like we're more concerned with female characters in fiction now. And to be honest, Star Trek hasn't always had like the greatest track record with that, but I'm impressed by it here. I like that.
Yeah, and without a doubt, I believe that's what they're trying to convey. Because they never could show that, especially at this time, and with it being still a kid's show or something along those lines, that is absolutely the idea they're trying to convey with what he is doing in this scene.
And yet it doesn't demean her as a character, which is, I think, is very important.
Oh yeah, right. No, yeah, this is entirely on him.
Okay, so we'll continue on here. Sisko's Jem'Hadar ship is en route to Dominion space, and Sisko is having trouble with the headset. Garrick offers to wear the other one, as he noticed Dukat wearing one earlier, so that he can share the burden. Soon, the ship is discovered by the USS Censure, captained by Charlie Reynolds, an officer Sisko is acquainted with. Just as they are about to cross the Cardassian border, the Centaur fires on them.
By the
Of
way,
course, with
awesome kit bash ship. It's a Excelsior saucer section, the roll bar of the Reliant model with 2 Excelsior engines on the ends of the roll bar. It looks damn good.
It looks kind of like a cross between like an Excelsior and like an Akira class.
Right. And the thing is, with the kit bash stuff, it actually makes a certain amount of sense inside the world too, because it's like, well, we have these superstructures of a lot of ships. They're old. Let's just start welding them together and make Frankenships out of it and get them out there to fight the war. It makes a certain amount of internal sense to the show. I like that.
Plus, I think it also shows, like, at least with certain ships, it shows like the transition periods in between, like what Starfleet's design used to be like and where it's headed. I mean, like, because that was one of the things that I always noticed. Is totally off topic, but like that's what I noticed about when I watched yesterday's Enterprise with the Enterprise C. It's like it's kind of like that ship, that class of ship. You could see is like the midway point between the Enterprise B, which was an Excelsior, and the Enterprise D, the Galaxy class.
Yeah, brilliant bit of design on the Enterprise C. Woefully underused in the series, by the way, the Ambassador class. Lovely ship. Love them.
All right, well, let's get back to the Jem'Hadar ship then. With the communication system down, Sisko orders Dax to run for the border. However, the Centaur is still on them, damaging a guidance thruster. Sisko orders Dax to fire back, targeting the Centaur's weapon array only. Luckily, 3 Jem'Hadar ships enter the fray, and the Centaur warps away. Oddly, they don't acknowledge them, so they can continue on. In order to return the... then we switch to the station here. In order to return Bajoran security to the station, we see a scene where Kira and Sisko are chatting. And
Kira
Couple things about that scene that I really liked. If there was any, the illusion of Dukat being in charge drops as soon as a changeling comes into the picture.
Oh yeah,
even if it's Odo, it's just gone. This is the way it is, Dukat. I really like that. And then the other little thing, I think it's this scene where Weyoun is presenting the Ketracel White to his Jem'Hadar guards, I think. This is where you can see it's awesome when they can write multiple episodes together, because this completely parallels the very next episode, because they wrote the first 6 episodes all together and they could lay these nice little things out. You see on the station where there's a bounty of Ketracel White, and then you see in the next episode where they're crashed on a planet with that injured Vordo, who now is barely able to give out any Ketracel White to his, ravenous animals.
Damn good episode. I can't wait to talk about that next week.
But this is where this is the advantage of serialized shows, where you have it all lined up. You get to have these little scattered little things that, oh yeah, it's a little bit of a foreshadow thing, and that's just really neat and nice and kind of the modern television sensibilities.
Oh, absolutely. Great points. I've always said it. I've loved the serialization and just the callbacks. I love this 6-story arc. and then eventually in the end, the 10-parter to end this series in season 7.
It's, if you go back and if you read the Memory Alpha or contemporary interviews in that, people, the writers and the producers of this show talk about how controversial it was to go to the serialized format. And looking at that now, it's like mind-boggling. How is that controversial? It's the only right decision.
Especially seeing the end result. I mean, like, this is so much better. I'm sorry, like, I love what came before and what was on during this time, but like, this is so much better than all of it. And thank God that's what Discovery chose to do, because it's just.
You have to remember, though, in the 90s, though, they were more concerned about people sitting down and watching a show, and then, sometimes they do back-to-back shows, but they weren't necessarily in order. They were maybe one from this season, one from the 2 seasons before, because it was just a way to get people just to watch the show and not feel they had to. I understand why. But I agree with you. Like, the serialization is so much better. The storytelling is phenomenal. You may some people, because people may not want to get invested in a program because they know that they have to watch A, B, C, and D in order to.
Well, you notice this is where TV takes the turn where it starts to do what Battlestar Galactica did, which is like each new episode, it's like, here's all the pertinent information you need to know that you may have missed. Here, we'll just start off here. Like, that's basically what they're gonna do, at least with this 6 story arc. But I mean, yeah, I get the why it was controversial at the time. And I mean, I haven't watched the series, but Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the only thing that was really kind of doing this mythology sort of stuff at this time would have been X-Files, because it had the movie that you had to see in between seasons.
Yeah, but the X-Files was doing the same kind of thing here. The 2/3 of the season or whatever would be completely standalone episodes, with the 1/3 being the mythology episodes, where you would have the overarching story. But to be fair to the writers at the time, like we're saying, I think the kind of succinct point is this was an era before binge viewing existed as a concept. So yeah, you couldn't watch these shows all together and follow the story. So what you get is the in-between serialized, where if you look at these episodes, they're still standalone, more or less. This one is standalone, destroy the Ketracel White facility. The next one is still standalone, you're wrecked on this planet, kind of a thing. So it's like they still couldn't quite go full into it.
But it's still part of a bigger story, though, which I think is what people buy into.
Right, but if you look at like a series now, like where people have like truly stepped into this, you have like Stranger Things, where there is no nice little delineation between stories in there, where this is, now that's accomplished, let's move on to the next part. It really is just every episode is pretty much a direct cliffhanger into the next. It's just a direct continuation.
I mean, that's what Discovery is now. Not that I hate that about it. I like that about it, but that's what it is. It's like, each episode is a chapter rather than a full story.
Which it absolutely needs to be, because it's just a different world. It's just how the art form is now.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff, and I like seeing it experimented with here. It was revolutionary for the time, but this series, I think, I was more excited for this series to hit Netflix than any of the other Star Treks, because I think this series, more than any of the other ones prior to Discovery, is the one that benefits most from something like Netflix.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've harped on this topic before, but this is where it's really come home to roost. This is where it really is the continuous story, at least for a stretch of the show.
Well, shall we continue on then? So we find that Odo tells Kira about Weyoun's request, and she's concerned that Weyoun may be using Odo to validate the Dominion's occupation, which is what we already chatted about. Odo says that he thought we were using them, and besides, he walked this fine line before, but Kira clearly remains uneasy. Meanwhile, Sisko's Jemadar ship arrives at the Ketracel White storage facility. They set the time for 3 minutes, with 900 kilometers to move off to avoid the blast. They send it, but after the exchange of mostly empty canisters for full White takes place, Garrick asks the facility for clearance to leave. Instead, the facility raises their security net, trapping Sisko's ship inside, while the bomb is still ticking. The facility orders Sisko's ship to stand by. The crew concludes that if they stay inside the net, the bomb will destroy the ship along with the depot. The explosion will also take out the security net, but if they attempt to escape too early, they'll smash into the inside of the security net before it comes down. Dax and Bashir calculate that if the ship goes to impulse exactly 1.3 seconds before the bomb detonates, they will avoid both the explosion and the security net. Dax programs this into the computer and hands the piloting controls over to it. But the bomb goes off early. Dax takes back the helm control and gets the ship out of there. The Jem'Hadar ship barely makes it out. The huge explosion chases its tail.
I love this
awesome shot.
I was gonna say that I love this. You're on the same wavelength, man. I love the shot of the ship barely escaping.
Right. I mean, the station itself blowing up was a little bit, modelly, but the fireball, that the tracking shot of the Jem'Hadar ship trying to leave it, that's awesome. And by the way, that whole sequence is really good and full of really good
super tense.
Yeah, and just the great swerve at the end of it, of the bomb going off early, because you always expected the bomb to go off late and everyone's like, what the hell happened? No, it's the other direction. It went off very early. A nice little bit of misdirection there. That whole sequence was very nice.
Absolutely. Well, the ship suffers heavy damage. The core matrix is fried, there's no warp drive, and Bashir informs everyone that the closest Federation starbase is 17 years, 2 months, and 3 days away, give or take an hour, which I think is kind of cool because we forget just how much warp's speed can actually take them distances, and if they don't have it, they're going nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just like, we drive everywhere, a couple hour drive. Well, if you had to walk that in the olden days, good God, you just probably wouldn't. Sisko's crippled Jem'Hadar attack ship is now without warp capacity, and it starts the long journey back as we break to closing credits.
Yeah, good cliffhanger here. It's going to be interesting, because we're going to move into final thoughts and ratings. Here's where the show gets hard to score, because we've had two-parters in the past. And, we've done like the score for the one part, score for the next part, and then, kind of an aggregate. Here it's like, yes, it's a complete story. And I like that you point that out, Matt, that they still accomplish something each week. And yet it's like a hybrid of a story and a chapter. And so it's like grading a chapter in a book. So I'm very interested to see how we're going to do this. But Blair, you have the unenviable task of going first. So thoughts and ratings for A Time to Stand.
Well, I enjoyed this episode. I don't want to say it's a 5-star episode by any means, because I think this is this episode really is the foundation for season 6. It's setting the stage for, as Smonsky said, the little missions that we're going to see throughout the series. We're off the station now for essentially a whole season, and I really think they paced it well too, where they would go back to the station. And it wasn't just a waste of time. Sometimes we used to always have the station break. If they were on a mission, the station break, just to kill a little bit of time. And then they quickly brought us back to the A plot. I really find that when we're going to Deep Space Nine, we're going there with a purpose. And we're coming out of those little scenes with value. It's not just a time waster. I think there's the valuable time, whether it's a Dukat scene or that Weyoun and Jake scene. So I really enjoy how they're running it, and I think we'll see that throughout this season. So I think it was. I love the little mission. I love the fact that they called back to the Jem'Hadar ship, that they're actually using it, and I really like it. Not a 5, but I think I'll give this 4.25 sandwiches.
Matt?
Yeah, Matt, you had a pretty good point. It's going to be difficult to rate these because they're standalone in one respect, but totally not in another. But, man, I'm gonna rate this one basically on my respect for it, because they could have easily come back from a cliffhanger like that and gone, whatever, the war is not that big of a deal, blah blah blah, easily resolved. They in fact don't do that. They dive headfirst into it as much as they could, given the era of television and the franchise that they were working in. So I really respect what they did there. So that gets a bonus bump, if nothing else. But then the episode itself is just really good. Complete misdirect from what you maybe expect. It comes in on a real down note, which, looking back, that's absolutely the way it should be, but it's maybe not the way you expected it to be coming out. And then all the character stuff. You have now established two really good villains for two completely different reasons. We see Ducat being revolting in this episode, and then you see Wei Yun being extremely compelling in this, and they're both great for those two things. And then you get our cool heroic mission from our heroes, and it's tense and it's good. So you know what, this is a 5-star episode to start out the season. It's really damn good. Matt, on to you.
I can't argue with that. I'm just like, it's so hard because like you want to not give everything a 5, even though like I have a lot of like 5-star memories of these few episodes. I'm gonna give this one. I'm gonna split the difference and give it a 4.5 because just my memories of the next one when they're stranded on the planet is probably like, if not my favorite of this arc, like 1 or 2. But this one, I mean, like they do such a great job of setting up, it's not like we haven't met the cast before, but like it sets up the new dynamic. Who are our players? Who are, who's doing what? Whose role has changed? I mean, like you said, we have 2 great villains now, and he didn't have like a super high role this week, but I mean, we're establishing not only 2 great villains, but a good villain henchman, if you will, in Damar. Just kind of setting up that antagonism between him and Kira that will, benefit their story much further down the line. It's just like the perfect place setting, I think, for this arc and for this season and for the rest of the series, quite frankly. So I'm going to give it a 4.5, but with that asterisk, like I really like, this is so good for me, but I have to grade on a curve for these kind of episodes, and it's going to be interesting to try to manage that going forward.
Well, the worst crappy Sun episode might bring it back down a notch.
See, but even that one, like I don't have bad memories of.
I do. I'm willing to revisit it, obviously with an open mind, but man, I don't remember that one being great. I remember it being annoying.
It might be a little annoying, but then again, we have Gabrielle Union as a Klingon. How bad could it be?
I don't remember that at all. But well, Matt, look who you're talking to here. I'm not the biggest fan of the Klingon cosplaying.
Right. I mean, like it's going to be interesting to rewatch this episode, having seen now the Klingons in Discovery and how much I think better characters they are.
And I'm looking forward to seeing a not a Klingon in Worf's Kid. I mean, that could be a saving grace for it. I don't remember. So we shall see.
Comparatively speaking, it might be a dub, but I don't remember it being like a, this is horrible. Like it doesn't further anything sort of episode. But
tune in 2 weeks to find out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But like, I'm real like there wasn't a better episode, I think, to get us energized for this new season. And I mean, I've seen these episodes millions of times, but like, especially next week, I saw Blair, you were agreeing with me when I gave my rating. Next week is probably if not my favorite episode of this arc, second favorite for sure.
Now that's a 5-star. That's for sure. And I won't be on, so I'm just telling you right now. That's 5.0 phaser fights and goodness.
Right. Write it down, Matt. 5-star.
Will do. Even above like retaking the station arc.
See, that's the other one that might come close. But I mean, as far as drama goes, like personal character drama, because Kira has a really good story next week too. I don't know if you remember the B story for that one, Blair, but it's so good.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank right now.
I'll tell you after the
Sure.
recording's done. But let's move on to our feedback section here. And as always, thank you so much for your feedback. We really do appreciate hearing from you. And there are a number of ways you can get a hold of us. You can reach us through email at up2podcast@gmail.com. Leave a comment on our forums at forum.checkmatefamily.com. Follow us on Twitter at UP2podcast and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/upperpylon2. Also, we thank you for the 5-star iTunes reviews. We're really getting into the nitty-gritty of this show now, and the more that you rate us and review us, the easier it is for everyone to find us. So, thank you so much for all the compliments and the rewards that you give us through your kind reviews. And you can also reach us personally through Twitter. I am at mhansen0207HANSEN, talking about Discovery, talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, talking about anything geeky. Find me there.
And I can be found at Pro Sub-Zero, where I'm talking about how awesome the Royal Tannenbaums is. Seriously, is that the best movie ever? I think it might be.
And I can be found at Medic1849, where I am retweeting about hockey, World Cup qualifying, which is now completed, and of course, Star Trek Discovery.
And thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to kick off season 6, and we will come to the next chapter of our little war arc here with Rocks and Shoals.
This is Blair from Ontario, Canada. Until next time.
I'm Matt in Buffalo, and it's never necessary to tell me that you think I'm right. We'll just assume it.
And this is Matt from Arizona, closing hailing frequencies. Docking clamps are open, and you are cleared for departure.